Limitless by Jim Kwik. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be doing a detailed breakdown of everything this book has to offer. We're going to go over flow states, the top 10 brave foods to supercharge your brain, the 4 modern day villains that are holding you back, how to find your laser focus, the 8 intelligences, unlocking your memory, and heaps more. Let's jump into it. All right, so I'm super excited to be breaking down this book today. This was by far one of my favorite books I've read this year, mainly because I found this book to be super practical, and it seemed more like a practical guide than just a heap of information about self-help. At the end of each section, there were plenty of practice exercises that you could implement into your life straight away. So the book is broken down into 4 main parts: freeing your mind, mindset, motivation, and methods. So what is mindset? The deeply held beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions we create about who we are, how the world works, and what we are capable of and deserve, and what is possible. This anecdote comes a little bit later in the book, but I found it a useful example, so I'd like to share it here first. He gives an example of a young elephant that is chained to a stake in the ground. And as the elephant grows into a fully mature elephant, its mind has placed limitations on itself. Although it could easily rip the small flimsy stake out of the ground to be free, it has developed this learnt helplessness, so it doesn't even try. And the book goes into this concept of unlimiting, which is the act or process of casting aside inaccurate and restrictive perceptions and embracing the reality that with the right mindset, motivation, and methods, there are no limitations. So the book is broken down into these sections accordingly: mindset, motivation, and methods. And this is the core philosophy of the book. Modern day supervillains, the 4 Ds. These are the modern day villains that 15 years ago we weren't even dealing with. So let me introduce the 4 villains, and then I'll give you some of the remedies that the author suggests for each one. The first of the Ds is digital deluge. Compared to the 15th century, we now consume as much data in a single day as an average person from the 1400s would have absorbed in their entire lifetime. So that is amazing. And we are being bombarded with data. We're always switched on. We're always hooked up to the net. Humans today are consuming 3 times more than our parents in the 1960s. There's just too much information, too much neural activity going on, and all of that extra activity can have ill effects on our brains. It can lead to things like brain fog, subpar memory, and fatigue. Chances are that you guys have probably felt that body fatigue after a long period in front of a screen. The second D is digital distraction. So we live here now, and because of our always on, ever connected devices, we're struggling to find connection when we're with friends and family, and we're struggling to stay focused at work. So this is where we live now. We're connected to the web in every downtime moment, waiting for the bus, waiting in a line. We need to think, what happens when this is our constant way of being? When every downtime moment is filled with shining screens and all this extra stimulus. This is leading to less social interaction with friends and family because our devices make us feel more secure, but actually we're less happy. Next, digital dementia. Neuroscientist Manfred Spitzer uses the term digital dementia to describe how overuse of digital technology results in the breakdown of cognitive abilities. He argues that short-term memory pathways will start to deteriorate from underuse if we overuse technology. In the past, we needed to remember things like people's phone numbers, street addresses, things like this. Nowadays, our short-term memories are just being underused. You probably couldn't tell me the phone number of your child or your significant other off by heart because, you just rely on your phone to have that saved. The 4th D is digital deduction. In a digital-first world where millennials obtain all their answers to problems at the click of a mouse or the swipe of a finger, The reliance on technology to solve every question confuses people's perception of their own knowledge and intelligence. And that reliance may well lead to overconfidence and poor decision making. Before the internet, we didn't have the immediate and readily available access to the opinions of others. We needed to reflect, reason, draw our own conclusions from our own insights. So if technology is doing all the deductions for us, then we will gradually be losing our ability to problem solve. And that ability to problem solve is so integral to the human experience. He also talks briefly about a 50 we also need to be careful of, which is digital depression. With the emergence of platforms like Instagram and Facebook, photo filters, Photoshop, comparison culture, these are increasingly becoming a problem in our society. People are beginning to feel unworthy. They are wanting to reach unattainable outcomes. Here are some tips that the book gives for dealing with each of these villains. For digital deluge, take a moment and schedule 30 minutes of white space in your calendar for this week. This is time to be spent away from technology, time dedicated to clear your mind, relax, and be creative. For digital distraction, go to the notification settings on your phone and turn off all unnecessary and distracting pings and dings. Do this now. For digital dementia, take a minute to exercise your memory. Memorize the phone number of someone you communicate with regularly. And lastly, for digital deduction, think about a decision you need to make. Schedule some time to work on that decision without the use of any digital devices. Next, neuroplasticity and the second brain. Neuroplasticity is dependent on the ability of our neurons to grow and make connections with other neurons in other parts of the brain. In the book, he talks about a study that was conducted on London taxi drivers, and they found more matter in the hippocampus of the taxi drivers who needed to remember streets and drive their way through the maze of London than people of similar age and intelligence. They also found that the longer that person had been driving, the larger the hippocampus was in their brain. So in short, the brain is malleable. It's able to expand and change over time, and it can change its structure to meet its cognitive load. Our second brain is the brain in our gut, or the ENS, the enteric nervous system. Scientists don't know everything there is to know about the smaller brain. However, they are beginning to understand how it can affect our mood and our behavior. Without going into too much detail, it is believed that the second brain in our gut may be able to communicate with the brain. And the nutrients that are absorbed through our intestines can make a huge difference in the way that our brains function. Finally, in this first section of the book, the author lays out some methods to help you study and learn more effectively, which he refers to as the FASTER method. Your time is one of your greatest assets. It's the one thing you can't get back. F is for forget. Always have an open mind to receive new information and don't think you already know all the information. The first thing to forget is what you already know. When you think you already know all that there is to know about a subject, it can become a barrier to new knowledge. Secondly, try to forget things that aren't urgent to you right now. If something else pops into your mind while you're trying to study, always have a notepad handy. Write down that thought and you can come back to it later. The act of simply writing something down allows your mind to just let go of it for now. A is for act. Traditional education has trained many people that learning is a passive experience. You consume the information. You sit in the class and you listen to the professor. But learning is not a spectator sport. And the human brain does not learn as much by consumption as it does by creation. So you want to take notes, highlight, link new concepts to practical examples or stories that can help you to solidify that knowledge. S is for state. All learning is state dependent. Your state is a current snapshot of your emotions. It is highly influenced by your thoughts, your psychology, and your physical condition of your body, physiology. So you might want to ask yourself, how motivated and energized are you to learn what you have to learn? What are some things you can do to change your state? Maybe change your posture, do some stretching, some breathing exercises. You can try some of these before you sit down to study. T is for teach. If you want to cut your learning curve dramatically, learn with the intention of teaching the information to someone else. E is for enter. What is the simplest and most powerful personal performance tool? Your calendar. You know, work meetings, children's events, taking the dog to the vet. People schedule things all the time, but the one thing that people don't schedule time for is time for themselves. So things like personal development, growth, study. So what you want to do is clear some time in your calendar and make sure you write it down. Lastly, R is for review. One of the best ways to reduce the effects of the forgetting curve is to actively recall what you learned with spaced repetition. And that concludes the first section of this book, Freeing Your Mind. Now, let's move on to section 2, which is Mindset the What. Types of genius. When you think of geniuses, who are the first people that come to mind? Chances are that people like Einstein, Hawking, Tesla, these are the types of people that immediately come to your mind. In the book, Jim goes over some different types of genius. So, experts differ on the number, but it is generally believed that genius expresses itself in 4 different manners. Dynamo. Humans with dynamo genius have amazing creativity and ideas. An example of such person would be William Shakespeare. Blaze genius. An extraordinary ability to connect and socialize with people. An example would be someone like Oprah. Tempo genius. An ability to see the big picture and stay on course towards a grand vision without deviating or losing interest in the cause. An example would be someone like Nelson Mandela. And lastly, we have steel genius. Humans who are great at the details. An example of someone with steel genius would be Sergey Brin of Google. The main concept here is that genius extends beyond academics. So don't limit yourself by negative self-talk like, I'm just not intelligent, I always got bad grades at college, so therefore I mustn't even be in the realm of genius. You can be a mixture of different geniuses. So have a think about what your genius is and let it free. Overcoming limiting beliefs. Before we go over the steps that he advises to overcome limiting beliefs, I think it's important to understand why positive thinking and overcoming these limiting beliefs is so important. This isn't all just pie in the sky, kumbaya, spiritual kind of stuff. You know, it's been scientifically proven that positive thinking reduces stress. So reduced stress means lower cortisol levels in the body, which can lead to increased lifespan, lower rates of depression, greater resistance to the common cold, better immunity, better psychological and physical well-being. It can improve your cardiovascular health and reduce the risk of things like heart attacks and cardiovascular diseases. And in general, it just helps you to better cope with the hardships and stresses of life. Now, if we come back to the example of the elephant from earlier that we spoke about, its limiting belief was that it was stuck forever, chained to the small stake in the ground. So step 1 is to name that limiting belief. Let's give it a name. In that case, it might be something like stuck at the stake. For you, it may be something like, I'm not an entertaining person, I'm unintelligent, or I'm not a good companion to be around. Maybe you had a socially awkward situation when you were a child or when you were growing up, and ever since then, you've had this negative self-talk. So try to get to the original source of that limiting belief. And when you do this, it allows you to realize that these aren't facts about you. They are merely opinions. And there's a great chance that those opinions are wrong. If you find yourself saying something to yourself like, man, I always screw up this sort of thing, or I'm just not a good companion to be around, try to counteract that with something like, um, just because I haven't always been good at this in the past doesn't mean that I can't be great at this now and in the future. So that is step one. Make sure you get to the source of it and identify it, give it a name. Step two, get to the facts. The steak is small in size. I'm a strong, fully grown elephant. What is to stop me from ripping that steak right out of the ground? Are you really unable to break free from the steak? Are you really the least entertaining person in the room? And where is your evidence to support that claim? How many times have you actually been in situations where you were an unentertaining or poor companion? And you need to be careful because small situations can happen in your past. And if you keep telling yourself something long enough, then you start to believe your own opinions. Step three, creating a new belief. First, it is important to try and combat that negative self-talk, which is your inner critic. So try to give it a name, a persona different to yourself. You can call it Bilbo or Gollum or anything you like. But you want to make it seem like a cartoon and like a B-grade movie. And whenever that inner critic, starts giving you opinions, you want to just roll your eyes and say, not today, Gollum, not today, Bilbo. And you just want to mock that character, that persona for its dedication to bringing you negativity. A good thing to try is to replace your inner dialogue with I am statements. So something like, I am a good companion. Remember the time I did such and such? I may not be entertaining and a good companion 100% of the time, but in many situations I have been, including this time and that time. In the last section of mindset, there are 7 lies that we tell ourselves about learning. When Kwik uses the word lie throughout the book, he means limited ideas entertained. So lie number 1 is intelligence is fixed. The new belief that you want to create is that your intelligence can grow if you believe it can grow, and then you can put in the work to make it grow. Lie number 2, we only use 10% of our brains. New belief, I am learning to use my whole brain in the best way possible. Lie number 3, mistakes are failures. The new belief you want to create is that mistakes are signs that you're trying something new, and they are opportunities to learn. Life isn't about comparing yourself to anyone else. It's about comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. There's no such thing as failure, only a failure to learn. Lie number 4 is that knowledge is power. New belief, knowledge has to be acted on. Knowledge combined with action equals power. Lie number 5, learning new things is very difficult. A new belief that you can create is that when you learn how to learn, the challenge of learning new things can be fun, enjoyable, and easy. Lie number 6, the criticism of other people matters. New belief, it's not other people's job to like, respect, or love you. That's your job and your job alone. Lie number 7, genius is born. The new belief that you want to create is that genius is not born. However, it is made through deep practice. Motivation, the why. The author defines motivation as the purpose one has for taking action and the energy required for someone to behave in a particular way. There are 3 lies about motivation. Lie number 1 is that motivation is fixed. In truth, you can increase your motivation. Lie number 2, you have to enjoy something to be motivated to do it. The truth is that, quite simply, all you need to do is have a strong enough reason to do that thing, even if you don't enjoy doing it. If any of you have seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, then you will know this to be true. Lie number 3, Motivation is something I either have or I don't have. But in truth, motivation can be created. So, according to Limitless, the formula for motivation is simple. Motivation equals purpose times energy times small steps. So, we need a clear purpose. We need energy to get it done. And we need small, simple steps, S3, to prevent us from getting overwhelmed and paralyzed. Let's go a little bit deeper into purpose. As we established earlier, we don't have to enjoy something to be motivated to do it. However, you do need to have a clear purpose for why you are doing something. You can ask yourself, why must I study this? Or why must I learn this? The book also outlines not to get confused between passion and purpose. Your purpose is what you're here on earth for, and maybe it is to help people. So the author Jim's passion is learning, but his purpose is teaching people how to learn. So do you know your purpose? If you don't, that's fine, but maybe you can write down a few ideas as to what it may be. And if you're struggling to find your why, then there is a great book that I would suggest by Simon Sinek, which is called Start With Why. You can also check out his other book, which is Find Your Why. I recommend this book if you're struggling to find your purpose in life. And maybe I'll do a summary on that book in the future. Let me know in the comments below if you would like that. Or if you have any other books, actually, that you would like to see summarized, please let me know in the comments below. So, who do you think you are? They say the two most powerful words in the English language are the shortest, I am. Whatever you put after those two words determine your destiny. If you tell yourself you're a slow, inefficient learner, your subconscious mind will manifest that into reality. Instead, try telling yourself, I'm a fast and efficient learner. Write down a few I am statements that might steer your motivation and growth in the right direction. Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, also talked about how important and beneficial I am statements can improve your life. I also did a summary of this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'll leave a link in the description below if you'd like to check out that video. Lastly, on purpose, having a hierarchy of values in your life. For the author, Jim Kwik, his values are love, growth, contribution, and adventure, and they are in that same order. His values allow him to choose what things to pursue in life and what things to deny. He doesn't mind having FOMO, which he calls FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, especially if that thing that he is being asked to be a part of doesn't in any way contribute to his values or his purpose in life. And he actually had a word which I'm currently blank on. JOMO. JOMO. He said to encourage you to have JOMO, which is the joy of missing out, instead of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Okay, energy. There are 5 main components that can maximize your energy. Number 1 being food. There are certain nutrients that are more conducive to a healthy, functioning, and focused mind. Number 2, regular exercise. This improves and protects your memory and thinking skills. Even just 10 minutes a day will give you a heap of benefits. You don't need to work out like an elite athlete or anything like that. Number 3, having a tidy and clean work environment. 4, a positive peer group in your life. If you surround yourself with negative people, you too will almost certainly become influenced by their negativity. And finally, 5, sleep. Make sure you're getting enough quality sleep. In the book, his top 10 brain foods are avocados, blueberries, broccoli, dark chocolate, eggs, green leafy vegetables, salmon, sardines, caviar, turmeric, walnuts, and water. The book also has quite a few different recipes for shakes and meals that he says can improve your brain function. I won't be including that in this video, but if that interests you, I definitely recommend you guys go and grab a copy of his book. Okay. Small, tiny steps. A small, simple step, or S3. This is the tiniest action you can take to get you closer to your goal, one that requires minimal effort or energy. Over time, these become habits. So break everything down into smaller parts. Otherwise, you're going to risk becoming overcome by paralysis by analysis. I'm sure you guys have had times in your life when a task just seemed unattainable. But when you sat down and broke it down into, attainable chunks, it became manageable. Flow state. Okay, let's take a quote from the book. I'm sure there have been times when you were so completely caught up in what you were doing that everything else disappeared, and it just felt like the most natural thing you've ever done. Time probably melted away from you during those experiences. People regularly tell me about focusing so deeply on what they are doing that they had no idea that afternoon had become night, or they had missed multiple meals in the process. This experience is flow. Also, directly from the book, I'm not going to pronounce this doctor's name because I'm going to ruin it completely, but this doctor describes flow as having 8 characteristics. 1, absolute concentration. 2, total focus on goals. 3, the sense that time is either speeding up or slowing down. 4, a feeling of reward from the experience. 5, a sense of effortlessness. 6, the experience is challenging but not overly so. 7, your actions almost seem to be happening on their own. And 8, you feel comfort with what you are doing. The book goes into stages of flow. The first is struggle. When you first sit down, your brain is trying to concentrate. The second stage is relaxation. When you start to become relaxed and ease into that task. The third state is where you want to get to, and that is the flow state. This is where you experience all of the 8 characteristics that the doctor described. It's intense focus and effortlessness. The final stage of flow is consolidation. This state is where you pull together everything you accomplished in the flow. And this can feel like a bit of a downer, like the kind of feeling a drug addict may feel when they're coming down off drugs, but obviously much less severe. And this is because all of the happy chemicals you were experiencing during the flow state. So, how can we find the flow state faster and more efficiently? The first thing you can do is to eliminate all distractions. So you want to declutter and tidy up your workspace. Believe it or not, every object and different color in your peripheral vision is competing for your brain's finite energy. So a messy desk with many different objects and colors will make your brain more fatigued than having a tidy, clean desk without any distractions. And this is essential that all distractions are eliminated, because it can take almost 20 minutes to refocus and get back into the flow if you get kicked out of it by a distraction. So make sure you do whatever you can to eliminate any potential distractions. Next, allow enough time. If you're serious about getting into a flow state, ideally what you want to have is around 2 hours, but at least 90 minutes. This is mainly because it takes at least 15 minutes to begin getting into the flow. But you don't hit your peak until you're around 45 minutes in. Okay, third, do something you love. If you love what you're doing, you can achieve a flow state much, much easier. Lastly, have clear goals. Make sure you have a clear written goal of what you're hoping to achieve within that period of time. Okay, and to conclude flow, there are four main enemies that the author goes through. These are the four enemies of achieving flow. Multitasking. If you want to find flow, don't even entertain trying to achieve flow whilst multitasking. Stress. Stress is the flow killer. It is the kryptonite of flow. So deal with and reduce your stress before even attempting to get into flow. Having a lack of conviction. To the brain, uncertainty is a threat. So if you don't believe you're going to accomplish anything of importance, you'll guarantee that outcome. And fear of failure. Perfectionism reduces creativity and innovation. So you need to convince yourself that a little bit of a lack of perfection is actually okay. Okay, so that concludes flow. And I got to say, I think this was one of my favorite parts of the book, getting into these concepts of flow and how to get into flow in a more efficient manner. I think the mistake that I was making in the past was that I just wasn't allowing enough time for myself to, ease into that flow and hit that peak. So nowadays I'm making sure that I allow at least 90 minutes for whatever I'm focusing on. The final part of this book is part 3, which is methods, the how. When the billionaire investor Warren Buffett was asked, what factor do you feel has been the most important in getting to where you've gotten in life? Buffett immediately replied, focus. And Bill Gates, who was sitting next to him, agreed. Steve Jobs has also harped on the importance of focus. For Steve Jobs, focus was the ability to say no to almost everything and carefully choose what to spend his precious time on. So, focus is what defines the difference between an average performance and super performance. Imagine a magnifying glass, and when you harness the sun and burn a leaf, there is one point that is laser focused. Your mind needs to become that focused beam of light. You don't want to be spreading your focus. And the sun is your energy, and the laser beam of light is your focus. If you're someone that gets distracted easily, the good news is that your focus can be trained like a muscle. You can think of your awareness like that glowing ball of light that moves to different parts of your mind. And in order to excel at concentration, you need to make yourself keep that ball of light trained on one spot in your mind for long periods. And like most things in life, this won't be easy at first. However, with some conscious effort to exercise your willpower in this way, it will likely lead to notable results. So getting into that habit of refocusing will become natural over time. If you have a scattered brain, a lot on your mind, finding focus will be difficult to begin with. So you need to first calm that busy mind. Kwik gives us some breathing techniques which can help to do just that. He calls it the 4-7-8 breathing model. And here's how that works. First, you want to exhale fully, close your mouth, inhale through your nose for the count of 4, hold your breath for 7, and then exhale completely through the mouth, making a whoosh sound for a count of 8. And you want to repeat that cycle 4 times. So if something is stressing you out and the breathing techniques also fail, the only thing you can do next is to confront that stress, confront that thing that is causing you stress. And lastly, schedule time in your calendar for whatever is distracting you or giving you the stress. Okay, moving on. Study. Why are most of us restrained in our ability to study? Most people do not know how to study effectively because they were never taught. Many people naturally assume they already know how to learn. The challenge is that most of the techniques that we use now are old and ineffective. Many of them date back hundreds of years. We now live in a highly competitive information age where information is everywhere, yet we're still using the same methods to absorb and process it all. So we have a limited time, and there's only so much information that we can learn in that time. And that is why it's so important to study efficiently and effectively. The author gives us 7 habits that we can follow to make sure that we're being effective learners. The first habit is employing active recall. So people often study using passive recognition, which means you simply read and try to remember what you saw on the page. When you're reviewing, it's easy to say like, okay, I've got this. But when it comes time to put that knowledge into action, it becomes difficult to remember. If you want to actively recall something, after you study something, close your book, read out loud what you learnt and remembered, or write down what you learnt. These activities can help you to retain that information more effectively. If you're someone that crams information, then the second habit is for you. The second habit is spaced repetition. Cramming is a stressful task. You may remember the information for a day or maybe 2, but after that test or exam, you're probably going to forget close to all of that. So Kwik recommends reviewing once in the morning and once again before dinner, 4 days in a row before any important exam or test. The third habit is to manage the state that you're in. When you perform any activity, your state of mind will have the greatest impact on your success. Be aware of your posture. If you're slumped over, this can stifle your breathing and it will make you prematurely tired. So you want to sit up straight, improve your posture, and see if you can change that state. The sixth habit is to listen with your whole brain. So you want to get better at listening and actually listening to someone when they're speaking, not just waiting to reply to the person. So you want to halt yourself, actively listen. Don't think about your to-do list or what you're going to watch on Netflix tonight. Try to show that person some empathy and actually listen. Next habit is to take effective notes. Begin taking notes knowing your purpose in the first place for taking the notes. Try to use your own words wherever possible instead of transcribing word for word what the speaker said. When you do this, you're actually processing what the speaker said and not simply transcribing the information. On the left side of your notebook, what you want to do is capture the things that the speaker said, but on the right side, you want to create your own notes by answering questions like, how is this applicable? Why must I remember this? And when and where will I use this information? Okay. The next habit is to use your sense of smell. Smells are especially effective at bringing memories to the forefront of our brains. So you can put certain essential oils or perfume, cologne on your wrist while you study. And then you want to smell that same smell during the exam or during whatever it is that you need to remember to improve that memory recall. The last habit is music for the mind. So you want to use music to your advantage to shift your state. He recommends Baroque music at 50 to 80 beats per minute because it's able to stabilize the mind and help you reach deeper levels of concentration and focus. Music can help you learn vocabulary, memorize facts, and it helps you to read more effectively. So go ahead and check out some free Baroque music playlists today on YouTube or another platform. All right, moving on to memory. There are many techniques in the book for unlocking your memory. The first one is visualization. So this is the act of linking a word to an image of something. If you're trying to remember someone's name when you first hear it, you want to try and link it to a visual image. So if their last name is Baker, then you might want to imagine a baker with a big white hat. Next is to link words via association. So try to link new information to old information. If you can associate the new information with something that you're already familiar with, it will greatly improve your memory. So what comes to your mind when you think of a cherry? Perhaps red, sweet, fruit, pie, round, seeds, okay? These are words and pictures that you have learnt to link to the word cherry. So what you did was you associated something you knew to something you didn't know. at one stage in time. Next one is emotions. Adding emotions makes something more memorable. Information by itself is forgettable, but when information is combined with emotions, it can become a long-term memory. When we add emotions to something, we make it adventurous, we make it action-filled, we can make it humorous. And when we do that, we're much more likely to remember it. Lastly, you want to create a story. If you need to memorize a sequence or a long list of words, telling a story can really unlock that memory. Let's say your chemistry teacher asks you to memorize a periodic table, for example. Do you think you could do that? Maybe you could do it if you went through it over and over and over again, but this type of learning is very time-consuming and very inefficient. So instead, you could use some association, visualization, and storytelling. So maybe hydrogen. Let's make that a fire hydrant because it sounds very similar. Helium. What's something that has helium? Balloons. Okay, I can remember that. Same deal with lithium. Lithium batteries. Okay. For beryllium, we may make it some berries because they sound very familiar. Now, imagine you're standing next to a giant fire hydrant. Then you attach hundreds of balloons to the fire hydrant. The balloons somehow take the hydrant up into the sky and off the ground so that it flies high up into the sky. Suddenly, it starts raining batteries and berries. The balloons pop and the berries splatter all over the ground. So we could continue in that fashion, but I think you get the idea. You could break down each line of the periodic table into a short story, or you could break down each list that you have into a short story, and that will greatly help you to memorize the information. Okay, so let's move down here to speed reading. Now, he dedicates quite a few pages to speed reading in the book, but for the purpose of this summary, I'll only be going over some of his suggestions very briefly. However, if you are interested in pursuing this topic further, I would highly recommend grabbing the book. So, he tells us that regression and sub-vocalization slow you down. Regression meaning losing where you are on the page and having to go back. Sub-vocalization being the little voice inside your head as you read. So to improve your reading speed, he suggests to use your finger or pen as a tracker. You can also count while you read. This will help to prevent that inner voice, the sub-vocalization. He suggests to expand your peripheral vision so that you can take in more words. He suggests 20 minutes on and 5 minutes off. And lastly, he suggests looking at the page directly. So don't look at the page on an angle or slanted because this can cause eye strain. And the final topic in the methods part of this book are mental models and thinking. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Albert Einstein. The 6 thinking hats. The core notion is to separate thinking into 6 distinctly defined functions by progressively donning a series of metaphorical hats. So, for the white hat, this is when you're in information gathering mode. Okay? The yellow hat, this is where you want to argue the positives and pros of the situation. The black hat is the opposite of that, so you want to argue the negatives and the cons. The red hat is where you want to analyze any emotions at play. So are there any emotions that are affecting your decision-making ability? The green hat is to brainstorm solutions to the problem. And the blue hat is when you're in management mode. So this is where you make sure that you've addressed everything on the agenda and within this mental model. I think this is a great exercise to do if you're in if you're by yourself or in a team. And the reason why I think this is a great mental model is because what most people do is they view problems from their own perspective, that one perspective. And what I think this method allows you to do is view the problem from multiple different perspectives. The 8 intelligences. Why is it important for us to have tools to help us think in different ways? Because people usually have a dominant way of using their intelligence. So these 8 intelligences can be used to identify your strengths in how you think. For most people, they will have multiple intelligences, but are usually only dominant in one or two. People with spatial intelligence think in terms of space around them. So you might want to think of artists or pilots. Second, we have bodily kinesthetic. And someone with this intelligence uses their body. So an example would be athletes. Third, we have musical. So this is a strong sensitivity to rhythm, tone, melody, pitch, things like this. An example may be someone like Mozart. 4, linguistic intelligence. This is someone that's very attuned to the use of words. So this could be someone like Shakespeare. The 5th intelligence is logical mathematical. This is someone great at seeing logical relationships among actions or symbols. And an example of this intelligence would be someone like Albert Einstein. The 6th intelligence would be interpersonal. So this is someone with a deep innate ability to connect with others. You may want to think of someone like Oprah. The 7th, intrapersonal. This is someone great at understanding and managing their own inner feelings. And finally, we have naturalistic. So this is an ability to see the world of nature in all of its different complexities. And an example of this intelligence would be someone like Jane Goodall. Okay, moving down. Now we have the 3 learning styles. Just as types of intelligence vary from person to person, the way one learns varies. This theory of learning has been known for nearly 100 years now. So a visual learner is someone who prefers to learn through pictures, videos, and charts. An auditory learner is someone who prefers to learn through listening. And a kinesthetic learner is someone who prefers to have some kind of physical interaction or hands-on approach. If you guys are interested in finding out what type of learner you are, go ahead, grab a copy of this book, as it gives you a quiz that helps you find which learning style you are. For myself, I was a visual learner. Okay, next. The 40-70 rule. Never make a decision with less than 40% of the information you're likely to get, and to gather no more than 70% of the information available. Anything less than 40% and you're just guessing. Anything more than 70% and you're stalling over making the decision. So this was a rule that really hit hard with me because I find that in general, I'm someone that's a bit of a perfectionist. I need everything to be, very clear and perfect. So I love this rule and I'm really going to try and implement it into my life. Okay. Not to-do lists. So many people create to-do lists. But what happens is that these lists end up just becoming long and overwhelming. And what you want to do is you want to have a not to-do list. Okay. So this will help eliminate any distractions that you're having in your life. It'll help you not engage in unimportant tasks. And finally, a not to-do list would be something like not checking social media between this hour and this hour, not answering emails first thing in the morning, not doing this errand because it doesn't align with my overall values. Okay. Now, lastly, second order thinking and exponential thinking. Always ask yourself, and then what? Think in increments of time. What do the consequences look in 5 days, 5 months, and 5 years? First order thinking is easy, but it's second order thinking that allows us to go deeper through time and consequences. Best of all, it allows us to see what others can't see. Now, this isn't directly from the book, but let's run through an example of ordered thinking and consequences. So, let's say you decide that you're going to buy a subscription to Netflix because everyone's using Netflix and it's a cool thing to do, so why not? So this is where most people's thinking resides, in the first order. Most people don't even get to that second order of thinking. But let's ask ourselves, and then what? Well, you're going to need to get your money's worth, right? So the average Netflix subscriber watches around 1 hour of Netflix per day. So let's say you're going to be an average Netflix subscriber and you're going to do just that. So second order thinking would tell us that we need to have around 1 hour per day to dedicate to watching. But let's go even further. Let's extrapolate this out over a longer time horizon. So in 1 week, that's 7 hours you're dedicating to Netflix. In a month, that's 30 hours. In a year, 365 hours. Okay, but let's go even further. Let's say this becomes an ingrained habit, okay? At this point in time, maybe you're getting up to that 2 hours per day, but let's just keep it at 1. So the fourth order consequence, over the next 5 years, 1,825 hours of your life have been given to Netflix. Think of what you could have accomplished if you dedicated that 1,825 hours to something productive. And that is how you can go through ordered thinking. Okay, it's an amazing mental model that you should always go through every time you're about to make a big purchase or make a big decision in your life. And finally, guys, we have exponential thinking. So the incremental mindset focuses on making something better, whilst the exponential mindset is focusing on making something different. Incremental is satisfied with 10% better. Exponential is out for 10x. So you can think of people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. These are people who have that exponential thinking and are always, questioning the principles of what people say are possible or impossible. They're always trying to push the boundary. All right, so that brings us to the end of this summary, guys. We covered freeing your mind, mindset, motivation, and the methods to becoming limitless. So I hope you guys enjoyed this summary. I really enjoyed putting it together. If you did get some value out of this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel because it really does help, guys. Thank you. And if you would like me to summarize a book that you're interested in, please don't hesitate. Just drop it in the comments below. Thank you so much.